So, you can bitch and moan all you want about what the truckers and the farmers and everything else are doing. But this isn't over until the people responsible are in prison. That's the reality. You can lift the mandates, you can change things, you can pretend that we're going back to normal. But here's what normal is in Canada. Normal is the rule of law. Normal is when people who violate the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act in Canada get prosecuted, convicted, and serve the appropriate prison sentence. That is normal. That is required by the introduction of the Canadian Constitution, the rule of law. It's required by international law. So if you're a law enforcement officer, I suggest you go familiarize yourself with the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, specifically sections 1, 4 to 7, 13, and 14. Because 14 defines any law or order that would result in you violating, let's say, the ICCPR or the Rome Statute as manifestly unlawful. For those commissioned bodies out there, like me, particularly the Canadian ones that have to follow the Canadian Queen's Regulations and Orders, go to section 19 of Queen's Regulations and Orders and see what it says about following manifestly unlawful commands and orders. For you commissioned RCMP officers out there, go and have a look at what it says about manifestly unlawful commands and orders in section 14 of the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act or in Queen's Regulations. It's pretty clear. Now have every RCMP officer in all of Canada have a look at your oath. See what it says about unlawful orders. You're to follow lawful commands or lawful orders, not unlawful ones. The ones that say, oh, go close down a restaurant, aren't lawful unless there's enemy troops on our soil and there's a Canadian Forces officer who can justify closing someone's restaurant out of military necessity. You don't get to do it for any other reason. You don't get to tell a restaurant they can or cannot serve a particular part of the population and restrict their ability to do commerce based on a whim, someone's idea of a pandemic, one that is based on a PCR test that the FDA gave up on the 1st of January this year because, it turns out it doesn't actually do what its creators or all the public health authorities claimed it does. It doesn't work. It cannot differentiate between all the different coronaviruses or even, it looks like, influenza. It's a complete waste of time. It's a disaster, still being used here in Canada, unfortunately, despite the fact it doesn't work, and the science says it doesn't work, and even the FDA's given up on it. So anyway, here's the deal. Law enforcement officers have got a question that they need to ask themselves. Do I want to be a cop who enforces the law and stays true to my oath and doesn't violate the law by following manifestly unlawful commands and orders? Or do I want to take the risk that I'm going to get away with this for a while, and then when it goes wrong, run away to a small village in Paraguay and spend the rest of my life wondering when the front door is going to get kicked in and they're going to catch up with me? Because that's what happened with the last bunch of soldiers, airmen, sailors, and policemen who decided that the principles encapsulated in the ICCPR didn't apply to them. If you think that Canadians are going to bend over and give up, you got another thing coming. You have no idea what this fringe minority is capable of. This is the demographic of people that charged up Sword Beach. This is the demographic of people that stormed Vimy Ridge. These are the people who believe in the rule of law. And one way or another, as there's no statute of limitations on these actions, those who are responsible will be hunted down and brought to justice. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I suggest you Google, or use DuckDuckGo if you don't like Google, But anyway, do a search on Bruno Day. Day spelled D-E-Y. At age 17, he was drafted into the Waffen-SS, and he served as a camp guard at Stutthof concentration camp in 1944 and 1945. He was convicted 2 years ago, in 2020, a little bit less than 2 years ago, the end of 2020. Right? He was convicted of over 5,000 counts of crimes against humanity. And he didn't kill anyone. The German prosecution said, even though he was no ardent believer in the Nazi ideology, he failed to do enough to stop the crimes that were going on around him. He was 93. Justice caught up with him in the year 2020 for crimes he had committed in 1944 and 1945. Justice does not sleep. The only people who escape justice are dead. Now you might get lucky and die of old age in a hut somewhere in rural Vietnam. But is that really what you want to do? If you're a policeman, there's another option. You refuse illegal orders. You use the words, "you're under arrest," to those who are responsible. And this whole problem goes away. Now, am I saying it's going to go away easily? No, I'm not. It's not going to go away easily. And it's not going to be clean, and it's not going to be nice. But you know what? If you don't deal with a fire when it's small, it'll keep building. If there's a small fire in your porch and you leave it, your house will burn down. That's just the way it works. Problems never go away by ignoring them. It's never happened. So, that's my little rant for the evening. I'm going to